The Great Pyramid exhales heat into the night. Wind hisses across the plateau, carrying sand like sparks from a dying fire. You tilt your head back until your neck protests, and it still keeps going, stone on stone, up into a darkness it seems to command. For 5,000 years we've told ourselves a simple story. A pharaoh, a tomb, a workforce with copper tools and iron wills. End of mystery. But what if that story isn't wrong so much as incomplete? What if the most famous monument on Earth is still hiding its point? We've measured every angle, mapped every corridor, even scanned it with particles from space. And the deeper we look, the stranger it gets. Alignments too exact, chambers no one can enter, machining marks that shouldn't exist, at least not with the tools we say they had. Tonight we'll follow the evidence that baffles engineers, frustrates archaeologists, and thrills anyone who suspects history still has secrets. Stay with me. The last reveal might change how you see human beginnings. A story. Everyone knows, except the parts we don't. We're taught the Great Pyramid went up around 2550 BC under Khufu. Tens of thousands of laborers, ramps, sledges, grit. It's an inspiring tale of human coordination. Yet the closer you zoom in, the more the edges blur. Where are the contemporary inscriptions that plainly say, Khufu built this? Egypt recorded everything, from bread rations to heavenly hymns. Yet the pyramid itself is almost silent. Later marks deep inside are debated by some researchers. The monument's internal eloquence is its precision, not its prose. And if it was a tomb like the rest, where are the things tombs love to shout about? Lavish grave goods, texts singing a king's praises, the royal body itself. For the Great Pyramid, that expected chorus is quiet. Maybe it was robbed, maybe it was repurposed, or maybe its purpose was never only funerary at all. Precision that laughs at millimeters. Stand at the north face and line up a laser. The sides track true, north to within a fraction of a degree. Inside, granite blocks, some weighing dozens of tons, fit so cleanly you can't slide a credit card between joints. Engineers who've studied the finishing marks talk about drill cores and cut lines that look more like workshop control than trial and error effort. Replication attempts with copper and sand struggle at scale. Is this simply the apex of patient craftsmanship, or evidence of techniques we haven't fully rediscovered? And if the accuracy doesn't impress you enough, consider what's missing inside those tight corridors and chambers. Soot. If flaming torches lit the work, the ceilings forgot to remember. Light without fire. To carve straight passages, level floors, and finished ceilings, you need to see well. Yet the usual suspects, torches and oil lamps, leave residue. In many interior zones, there's little to none. That doesn't automatically prove advanced lighting, but it does force the question. Did they use mirrored light, reflective bowls, or methods we've yet to confirm? When evidence refuses to match expectations, good science widens the hypothesis, not the doorway. And speaking of doorways, one of the strangest sets where almost no one can reach it. The little door in a little tunnel. In the 1990s, engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink sent a small rover up a narrow shaft from the so-called Queen's Chamber. Passages many assumed were symbolic. The camera found a neat limestone slab ahead, fitted with two tiny copper handles, a door to nowhere, or to something. Years later, another team drilled a pilot hole, peered through, and found another sealed stone beyond it. As of today, that second slab remains unbreached. Preservation concerns are real. So is curiosity. When a closed question sits behind a literal door, it's hard not to wonder what the answer looks like. And then a different kind of vision peered even deeper. with particles that fall from the sky. The void that shouldn't be there. In 2017, scientists used muon tomography, cosmic ray scanning, to map density inside the pyramid without touching a stone. The results suggested a large, hidden void above the grand gallery. Not a crack, not a tiny niche, a space big enough to matter, structurally, ritually, or both. There's no obvious entrance, no texts describe it. It simply is. Perhaps it's a giant stress relief volume. Perhaps it's a deliberate chamber. Either way, the builders understood how to hold weight and make emptiness behave. If the unseen confounds us, the seen can be just as unnerving, especially the tool marks. Stones that remember. They're makers. Granite is stubborn. Copper is soft. Yet inside the king's chamber and elsewhere, some surfaces and cores present, like the outcome of consistent, repeatable technique. Engineers debate what combination, abrasives, bow drills, tubular coring, could produce the observed features at the required pace. Modern shop tools can, of course. But the point isn't what we can do today. It's what they apparently achieved then, at scale, on a clock that tradition says ran for 20 short years. And the scale wasn't only horizontal. Look higher up the mass and the puzzle grows heavier, lifting the unliftable. Some upper courses include blocks so massive that even now you'd want cranes and careful staging. Theories sprout like reeds along the Nile. Straight ramps, spiral ramps, counterweights, sandpit lowering tricks. Each solves one part and stumbles on another. Materials, angles, volume of fill, time. We may ultimately decide there wasn't one solution, but many, evolving as the monument grew. Still, the tempo implied by the conventional timeline, one block placed every couple of minutes for decades, makes even seasoned builders pause. And while our eyes trace stone, our ears catch something else. The building talks back when the chamber hums clap or chant in the king's chamber, and you can feel the air stand still and tremble. Certain frequencies set up standing waves, turning the room into a resonator. Maybe that's a happy accident. Maybe ritualists chose tones to wake the stone and body together. If architecture can be tuned, the pyramid isn't just shelter or symbol. It's an instrument, a place where voice and rock collaborate. If that feels mystical, the next mystery looks mathematical. A ground plan, written in stars. The three big Giza pyramids echo the three stars of Orion's belt, with an offset that some argue matches the sky thousands of years earlier than Khufu. Star-aimed shafts from the Great Pyramid appear to target sacred points. Coincidence is always a contender, so is intention. Whatever the exact epoch you prefer, Giza speaks cosmology in stone. It's a calendar, a compass, and perhaps a story about rebirth. Osiris in geometry. And the surface once told a different story, too. Not only with angles, but with color. Colors the desert forgot. We see sand-pale faces and think that's how they were meant to be. But fragments from the broader funerary world remind us of reds, blues, golds, even rare greens that challenge modern reproduction. Pigments weren't decoration alone. They were theology in mineral form. If the plateau once gleamed under the Egyptian sun, the aesthetic wasn't vanity. It was meaning you could see from miles away. At this point, the technical riddles tangle with something more human. Who decides what questions we're allowed to keep asking? Gatekeepers, critics, and the cost of control for decades. High-profile officials have managed access to digs, approvals, and public announcements. Dr. Zahi Hawass, charismatic, media-savvy, and fiercely protective of heritage, has long been one of the most influential. Supporters say strict oversight protects fragile sites from sensationalism and damage. Critics argue the same control can chill independent inquiry and slow exploration, especially when new ideas clash with canonical timelines. Both things can be true. Guarding Egypt's past and guarding an official narrative can look similar from the outside. Transparency versus preservation is a hard balance. But when small rovers halt at small doors, the world notices and keeps asking. Older than Egypt? The Sphinx in the Rain geologist Robert Schoch and the late researcher John Anthony West looked at the Sphinx enclosure and saw erosion patterns they associate with sustained rainfall, rounded undulating weathering, unlike wind-driven scouring. If that reading is right, significant shaping could predate dynastic Egypt by millennia, back to wetter times near the end of the last ice age. Many Egyptologists disagree, citing alternative explanations and later repairs. The debate is unresolved, but it's a model example of how geology and archaeology can sharpen each other if allowed to meet in the open. Zoom out, and a broader hypothesis takes shape. Inheritance, not isolation. Some researchers, engineer Christopher Dunn among them, see the precision at Giza, the machining signatures on granite, and the ultra-exact stone boxes at the Saqqara Serapeum as hints of techniques that don't fit neatly into our Bronze Age toolkit. Others, like Robert Bauval with the Orion correlation, argue the sky itself is encoded here. Graham Hancock popularizes the idea of a much older, now lost civilization seeding know-how that later cultures inherited in fragments. Mainstream scholars counter that extraordinary claims need extraordinary proof, and that remarkable outcomes can emerge from patient craft, clever methods, and centuries of incremental skill. Both sides agree on one thing. The data we still don't have would help. The questions behind the stones. So we circle back to what remains closed. Sealed slabs in narrow shafts, a Mune-mapped void, contested tool marks, alignments that flirt with perfection. Did a single master plan drive everything, or did solutions evolve as the work rose? Was this primarily a tomb, or also a clock, a compass, an acoustic stage? Did Egypt innovate alone, or inherit threads from older looms? None of those questions dishonor the builders. If anything, they do the opposite. They admit the work is big enough to keep teaching us. If you could open one door, just one, would you choose the little copper-handled slab, the hidden void, or the mystery of how they lit the dark? Tell me below. And if you want more deep dives into the strange corners of the ancient world, subscribe to Civilization Deep Dives, because the deeper you dive, the stranger it gets.